Now it's time to turn our attention to Nebraska and Colorado as we bring in the voice of Colorado football. Mark Johnson joins us on the Allo VIP line. The VIP line brought to you by Fiber, where we understand the exceptional service with local heart. And with that, we bring in Mark Johnson, the voice of Colorado football. Mark, I really appreciate you taking this time to sit down and talk to us for about 10 or 15 minutes here. It's been a pretty exciting couple of days here in Boulder.
Boy, there's no doubt about that. You know, and it's interesting by association with my job. Since nobody can get Bryant on the phone to talk to, I become the pseudo guy that those interviews. My phone's been ringing nonstop since that game on Saturday. But yeah, it's an interesting time in Buff Nation. There is no doubt about that.
Mark, let's just kind of back up here to last December. Deion Sanders gets hired in early December. Throughout the offseason, the transfer portal situation gets talked about not only on a local or regional stage, but on a national level. And then just the atmosphere in Boulder, just kind of talk and walk us through the past 7.5 to 8 months and what it's been like after this program went 1-11 last season.
Well, and it was 1-11. It was a bad 1-11, if there is such a thing. It should have been 0-12, and we're getting beat. You know, there was a 5-game stretch where we got beat by almost an average of 40 points a game. We were the worst team in college football, hands down, not even close. The most irrelevant team in college football. You want to talk about bottoming out, and I know that, you know, Nebraska fans can relate a little bit. You know, both these programs have had their struggles here this years, but what you all were dealing with was nothing compared to what was going on in Boulder, Colorado. It was awful. And so to go from that to December 4th, hiring, you know, Coach Prime, Deion Sanders to come in and be the head coach, and having this program all of a sudden become the most talked about program in America, and then over the next number of months, because of what he did recruiting, become as relevant as anybody in America, and then have the start that they had, you know, last week. I mean, it has been like a tsunami has hit Boulder. I mean, it has affected every aspect of the athletic department, from donations to sponsorship to season ticket sales to listenership to social media. It has hit everything. And I say all the time, we hired a celebrity who coaches. We didn't hire a celebrity coach. We hired a celebrity who coaches. And, you know, Deion Sanders is kind of one-on-one. He's kind of a unique individual, and it has altered every aspect of the athletic department.
Now, Mark, with your profession being the play-by-play, the voice of Colorado football, we talked about the complete roster overhaul that Coach Prime and Colorado went through. But for you, you know, learning all of the names, the numbers, the faces, and trying to get all of that with what you're doing for Colorado, how difficult was that? And what was your thought on him just overturning the entire roster?
Well, for a number of years, you know, I did national games for some of the networks, and you know, you walk into a national game and you got to get ready on both sides, right? You know, if you're the voice of a team, like well, I am, or Greg on your end. I mean, you know, we know the program, and so you know that part of the preparation is always easy. Well, here a few weeks ago, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks ago, I got in the elevator one day, and about 6 other guys jumped in the elevator. I looked around, and I don't know anybody in the elevator, not one player. There was only 9 guys that came back, scholarship guys. There were some walk-ons. But it was a total overhaul. And so getting ready for this season has been like doing a national game with 2 programs you've never seen before. And so, you know, that's been a bit of a challenge. Now, what he did, he took advantage of the rules the NCAA allows in this crazy world of college football in which we live with NIL and with transfer portal, and took advantage of them for a first-year coach and has used them to his advantage. And it's been a startling transformation of the roster, and just getting out there in the practice field, you know, once fall camp got underway, and standing back and thinking where the athletic level was, you know, 9 months ago and where it is now is a totally different world. And so it's been quite astounding to watch and see how he has done this, and it's been a total transformation.
We're speaking to the voice of the Buffs. Mark Johnson joins us on the Allo VIP line. And Mark, let's talk about the game that occurred last Saturday, got over 7 million viewers on national television. I mean, Colorado comes away with a 45-42 win against the TCU Horned Frogs on the road in Fort Worth. I mean, just what were your takeaways from week one in a time where I think a lot of outsiders like ourselves that obviously don't spend multiple days a week or a month around the program like maybe you do, we didn't really know what to expect. We didn't know what to expect from a Deion Sanders Colorado team in game one. But here they are. They have an explosive offensive performance, 45-42 win over the national champion runner-up TCU last Saturday?
Well, do you know what happens? Because of Coach Prime's personality and the way he goes about what he does, it, I think, kind of perverts the perception a little bit. And so people got caught up in his, persona, as dynamic as it is, and didn't really pay attention to the football aspect of this. But with that being said, I got to be honest with you. I stood out there every day in practice for a month, and I kept thinking, wait, I think I see what I think I see. I mean, they're incredibly athletic. Every day I see Shedeur Sanders. I'm more and more impressed with him as a quarterback. But again, it's practice. You're going against the same guys every single day. It's so hard to tell. It's not like the NFL where we get preseason games and you get a read on things. So I had greater expectation than I think the average person did out there, what I saw every day. And then when I saw it in real time, when the bullets are flying out there, and did see how they match up against a very good team in TCU that played for a national championship. Yes, they lost talent, but it is still the bulk of the players on that field played in that championship game a year ago, and saw how the speed of Colorado neutralized TCU, how good Shedeur Sanders is, and he's better. Like I said, every time I see him, I think, man, this can he be any better? And he's got a great arm. He's accurate with the ball. His timing is outstanding. He's a very smart kid. He reads defenses very, very well. I was blown away by the way he kind of manipulated the pocket, split the pocket, buying himself more time. And then he never seems to get panicked. His eyes are downfield all the time, finding open men and buying time. And so they were better than I thought they would be. And then moving forward, and I think to myself, okay, if you're going to beat Colorado, you better score 35-plus points. And that's a lot of points. This team is going to be hard for teams to cover because of the number of weapons and the speed with which they have. I can't, looking at Colorado's schedule, thinking, okay, who can match that speed? Well, the Pac-12, Oregon probably can. USC probably can. Outside of that, I don't know. I don't know who can match that speed across the board. And I'm not just saying, they can't have as much speed, and I can have any more because I'm not sure you can. And so that's what makes it so impressive and why I was so, pleasantly surprised on Saturday down at Fort Worth.
Mark, you mentioned Shedeur Sanders. Travis Hunter going both ways at such a high level, the number one recruit in his recruiting class a couple of years ago, committed to Florida State, decommits, follows Coach Prime to Jackson State and follows him up to Colorado. I mean, what were your first impressions of Travis and after that game against TCU? I mean, he's the Heisman frontrunner right now.
Yeah. Well, first off, when I first saw him in practice, and I thought to myself, a Martian could land on the planet and know nothing about football, and you could walk him out to the practice field, and he could stand there for 30 seconds and say, that one's different than the rest of them. Okay, he's one of those guys. He's just different. He looks different. We had Laviska Shenault here a few years ago who was different. But Travis is unique even compared to Laviska and what he offers physically on the field. And then to see what he did, playing 128 or 29 snaps, whatever it was, in 90-degree heat, and somebody said it was 132 degrees out of the field, in the sun down there in Fort Worth. But to play with that kind of effort for that long, with that many snaps, and then, you guys have sort of seen the highlight of the interception that he had. In my 35 years of doing that's one of the great plays I've ever seen. I mean, he baited the quarterback, he read the play, and then broke in the ball to make that interception. So he is a unique athlete that I'm not sure there's there's some very good players. Make no mistake about it in college football. There's very good players we're going to talk about for the Heisman all year. I'm just not sure that anybody is any better than him because I'm not sure that's even possible. But when you start seeing professional athletes, guys who are playing at the top of the game in the NFL, talk about Travis Hunter is as good as any of us. And I'll tell you a quick aside here. I said to Deion one day, I said, you might be the greatest cornerback in the history of football. How does Travis Hunter compare to you at that age? Deion Sanders said, he's better than I was. Not even close. Now, that's some pretty high praise coming from a guy like that. Yeah, he is a special player. Here's the thing, though. The way things have gone, as good as he is, teams are just going to stop throwing at him. And which would be good. I guess it'll cut the field down in half. Colorado got to say, but they're not going to throw to him because he's that kind of player back there.
We're speaking to the voice of the Buffs. Mark Johnson joins us. And now let's talk about Saturday's game because from Nebraska fans, we're sitting here going, all right, what are Colorado's weaknesses? We know the strengths are their speed on the perimeter. We know the insane level of athleticism that the Buffaloes have. What are some of Colorado's strengths? And if they're Nebraska fans listening, going into the game in Boulder this Saturday, where maybe Nebraska might be able to take advantage and keep it, maybe even come away with a win at times?
Sure. Well, here's what I'll say, and at this point, I'm not sure for any of it. Gary Barnett's the great coach, is my broadcast partner. Gary always says, you don't know what a team is until you've played at the minimum 4 games. Okay, so for all of us, for Nebraska, for Colorado, for anybody, we're not all sure what we are at this point. And that's why I kept using that caveat. It's one game. So I'm trying not to overstate. I'm just saying with impressed what I saw so far. Here's what I'll say are the unknowns at this point for Colorado. And I think that's a fair way of doing that for all of us at this point. The unknowns for Colorado is, can they establish a run game and do so against a physical team? That we don't know yet. They didn't have to do it last week. They threw the ball all over the yard. And so I think that's something that I'm still wondering about with Colorado. The line protected very well, throwing for over 500 yards as Shedeur Sanders did. He said to me the other day, we did a pregame thing together, and I said about the line doing a great job. He said the only time I got dirty is when I held the ball too long. Those are my mistakes. So I think it's fair to say I don't know if Colorado can establish a power running game at this point. Defensively, can they? They gave up some yards and some points obviously to TCU. Can they tighten that up? Can they stand up against a team that's going to power run the ball against them? I think that's a fair question at this point in time. So, I'm not necessarily looking at anybody and saying, well, that's an obvious flaw in the team. I just say it's an unknown at this point, and I think those are fair unknowns for Colorado right now.
Mark, a couple more before we go ahead and let you go. And next I want to ask just the vibe that is in Boulder this week ahead of, after last Saturday's performance, but then ahead of what is a big rivalry where even the Colorado president I can't remember if it's AD or president, talked about how there's open open dates in the seasons to come. This rivalry between Nebraska and Colorado still has juice, and Colorado's gotten the best of Nebraska prior when Scott Frost was the head coach here at Nebraska. What's the vibe been like out in Boulder for the listeners of ours that are heading out there? Because there's going to be a lot of them, I have a feeling.
Well, it's kind of funny. The vibe has been off the charts because of Prime and what he's done in that game, and then you add to it the Nebraska week, and so on Saturday. Think of this for a second. We're going to open up the 100th year of Colorado football at Folsom Field. Okay, so that was already kind of a big deal that we've been planning for inside the athletic department. Then you've got the Coach Prime effect, the win last week effect, the Heisman conversation around Shedeur and Travis. And then you throw the fact that the Huskers were coming in, and it's a nationally televised game. And I was joking with somebody, and I said, I'm not sure that old building's going to be able to handle the atomic bomb that goes out at 10 o'clock Mountain Time on Saturday morning. It's ridiculous. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. I've been doing this a long time, and before coming here, I was at Syracuse when Carmelo Anthony and that group won the national championship. So I was around kind of a super team like that did some phenomenal things. And as great as that was, that doesn't even touch kind of the hype that I'm seeing right now. And, Gary Barnett on the air the other day at the end of the ballgame looked at me and said, "This is starting to feel like 1990." When the Buffs won the national championship. So it's as Buff great Alfred Williams always likes to say, it's off the chain, and that's exactly what it is right now in Boulder.
One last one for you, Mark, right before we let you go. Speaking of a big picture here, the Pac-12 conference, hanging on by a thread at this point, if hanging on at all. Colorado's moving back to the Big 12. I guess just your overall thoughts on the college football landscape in all the conference realignment now that Colorado is right in the thick of it.
How about the fact that the Pac-12 is 13-0 this season, the only undefeated conference in America, and it's on life support and ready to have the plug pulled on it? The irony is just rich. It really is stunning. But the long view of the 12 years of the Pac-12 is a total, utter failure of leadership that resulted in what we're seeing right now. The landscape in college athletics right now, as we well know, there's no firm footing anywhere, okay? And so that added to it, but it was an utter failure of leadership in the Pac-12 that this has all happened. Now, it's not over with. I like this. There's an old line I heard years ago that said if you think you have peace, it's only because everybody's freeloading. And so now that we've seen the last couple of chips fall here with Stanford and Cal going to the ACC, you've got the Pac-2 sitting out there in Oregon State and Washington State. We don't know what their fate's going to be. I think this thing will quiet down a little bit for the next, 2, 3, maybe 4 years, and then it's going to come, ramp back up again. And what we'll probably see at some point then is a shifting where programs will be kicked out of leagues, kind of the weak sisters, if you will, be kicked out of leagues to try and make them stronger. But it's not over. I don't necessarily like the way that college football is going with NIL, with transfer portal, with all the upheaval in what we're seeing from a conference standpoint. But it's the reality of where we are. We're going to have to kind of fight our way through it.
Mark, appreciate the time. I obviously know there's a lot going on out there in Boulder, but I'm excited to get out there this weekend, and I know we're bringing out a couple of people from our station as well, just to because it's going to be a big game on Saturday. We're looking forward to it. We appreciate your time.
Awesome. Come by and say hi, and I look forward to seeing you.
There he is, Mark Johnson, the voice of the Buffs, joining us here on the Happy Hour 93.7 The Ticket, theticketfm.com. Appreciate Mark.